into outer space, 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 into outer space.
Bushi announced today that Al-Qaeda is public enemy number one in Iraq, and that may be true in a relative way. Let's look at the facts. Or let's listen to the facts. Anyway, previous to the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003, Al-Qaeda in Iraq was just a name given to a group led by Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, who had a loose connection to Osama bin Laden. He allegedly spent time in a training camp supervised by bin Laden in Afghanistan. Saddam Hussein was quite active in hunting down al-Zarqawi, mainly because Saddam himself disliked extremist Muslims. He considered them a threat to the nation. Hussein was considered and called a bad Muslim by Osama bin Laden numerous times. I've covered all of this before in my Al-Qaeda link in Iraq video, so to avoid droning here, let's get back to Bush. Making a statement like that certainly puts the war into perspective, and I view it as just pure marketing. I can't disagree that AQ in Iraq is real at this point. They are actively attempting to unify the various insurgent movements in order to establish a new government based on their form of Sharia law. So now it's fair to say that yes, we are fighting the enemy we went there to fight. Finally, after destroying the last bit of stability in the country, they can finally behave as they wish, and now we can kill them. Unfortunately, it's not the same Al-Qaeda, only Al-Qaeda in name. The last few statements known by a known Al-Qaeda commander, tongue-tied, Commander Zawahiri, of course, mentioned Iraq, but certainly puts more emphasis on what AQ was doing in Africa. Never been afraid to come right out and announce their strategy, and they don't use it as a diversion. I cited Osama bin Laden the other day in a video regarding his war strategy, and if you listen to it, it's exactly what he's doing without deviation, which is why I bring all this up in the first place. Al-Qaeda has now become a generic term which this administration feels comfortable applying to anyone from the Middle East who doesn't immediately go and vote when you point a gun at them. Again, all of that aside, the real problem seems to be that although Bush is trying to appease dissenters who call for a definition of enemy and victory, it's yet another way to prolong his battle against an entity that has publicly stated that its intention is to get him to give chase. Perhaps him and many like him are really convinced they can defeat terrorism in this way. Of course, as Osama himself has said it's much easier to sit back and simply let America piss Muslims off until they agree with it. It's very much like playing chess with someone and they tell you their every move 2 moves ahead. The good news is that the war drum is no longer deafening to Iran, who said the other day they will cut the hands from anyone who invades their country, and who is also about to sit down with Americans in an unprecedented meeting to discuss strategy for the war in Iraq, something I've suggested long ago. In other news, Tony Blair is finally stepping down after announcing his intention to do so months ago, and it's about time. What's with politicians lingering long after their welcome? Like Alberto Gonzales, who apparently sanctioned the illegal or unjustified firing of state attorney generals across the nation, allegedly because they didn't support Bush. Of course, he's not really a politician, but appointed by Bush nonetheless. And then there's Ehud Olmert, the Israeli prime minister. He's been asked to resign by many top officials in Israel, some even resigning to show how much they mean it. His turn-ons include rainbows, being powerful, and bombing the shit out of Lebanon. He's currently in the hot seat for screwing up the execution of the war against Lebanon last year. He refuses to resign. Him and George W. Bush also look real cute together in a photograph I saw where they were shaking hands. Happy souls. Don't forget Nouri al-Maliki, Prime Minister of Iraq, who enjoyed the withdrawal of part of his Congress a few weeks ago by the Mahdi army leader and his loyalists, and seems to hold a firm grip over about 25% of Iraq, sharing that distinction of unpopularity with our man, Bush. War as hell. The Mahdi army will presumably continue to be active politically, but instead start their own government, a tactic which worked in Afghanistan in the 80s for the Taliban, and could work in Iraq should the U.S. continue to fall victim to a very visible, with red flags and buzzers, trap. Peace be upon you all.